Hi, welcome to starting off the school year with collection analysis. This is the first of our fall series of collection analysis webinars, which is very exciting. So thank you for being here with us for it. My name is Susanna Gilbert, and I'm the project coordinator with Teaching Books for the Ohio and Missouri Collection Analysis Initiatives, among other things. But I want to start off by talking a little bit about what exactly these initiatives are. So these two initiatives in Ohio and Missouri bring ongoing professional development to library staff. So whether you're in a school, public library, academic library, or you're working with children's books in whatever kind of venue, we're offering you the opportunity to learn how to use these tools that are hopefully able to help affirm that the titles you're sharing in displays, collections, reading lists, all of those things are meeting your community needs. All right. So we are going to start with a couple more introductions here. Erin, do you want to talk a little bit about Ohio?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name's Erin from the State Library of Ohio, and we've been working with Teaching Books and offering the Ohio Collections Analysis Initiative since 2022. Does that sound right?
Like
Yeah.
that.
It's
Yeah.
just been a long time. We're so excited that we could bring this really helpful tool to Ohio, and we've had such a warm and wonderful response from users, finding it super helpful in a lot of different ways. So we're really glad you're here, and yeah, happy to be here.
Awesome. So you'll notice on the slide we've got here, you have my contact information and Erin's. Part of this initiative is also support that goes along with this training. So please do feel free to reach out to us at any point after today if you have questions, whether it's about the tools or the webinar or the initiative, how anything works. Please feel free to reach out to both of us and we will get your questions answered for you. And now in Missouri.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Katie Dunn. I'm the Youth Services Coordinator with Missouri State Library. And like Erin in Ohio, we've had Teaching Books for a little bit. I think in Missouri, we started in 2021 with the overall Teaching Books platform and then added the Collection Analysis Initiative in 2023. So found it's been super helpful for public librarians, school librarians, classroom teachers can use it. And Susanna's going to walk through a couple of the things that would be beneficial to everyone. So again, I'm like your local contact, but Susanna is sort of our project coordinator for this piece of it. So you can reach out to either of us with any questions you have. So thank you for joining us.
Absolutely, yes. All right, so before we hop into our next thing, I am going to put two links in the chat here to our registration forms. So to get on and see everything that I'm going to talk about today, you do need to register for these initiatives. So in Missouri, that's going to be teachingbooks.net/Missouri registration. In Ohio, it'll be /Ohio registration. So that's just going to fill out a brief form and you will get a welcome email in response, and that will give you access to all of the support materials that we're going to look at today, as well as getting yourself on my email list, which you might already be on, where you hear about things like these webinars and updates to the tools, other things we have going on. All right, so today we're going to spend a little bit of time just kind of doing a very quick overview of how analyzing collections works on Teaching Books. And then we're going to dive in and we're actually going to create and analyze some lists. We'll talk about how you can find and evaluate new titles to fill any gaps that you've identified. I'm not sure why all of the text isn't on that slide. We will fix that later, but we're going to explore some resources as well. This is what I get for using new slides today. And then we'll have some time for reflections and Q&A. We're hoping that you will leave today feeling like you're ready to start using these tools at your library for however you would like to use them. So a little bit of the why here. Why this in particular, if you are diving deeper into your collections or the books that you're sharing in your community. So we're hoping that you were able to build routines around this program, that it can be something you come back to as you're creating a new list or a new display, sharing out titles with a colleague or with a student. And hopefully this will be an easy way to build those routines because these are effective, simple tools that allow you to examine your collections. You get documentation of the collection data, resources along with that to evaluate, promote, and bring books to life. And then all of that hopefully ending in you having a lot of confidence that the titles that you've selected are meeting the need that you need them to. And how do you do that? So you're going to start by picking a small set of titles. So that might be a collection of small classroom collection, a display, recommended list, a set of titles that you're considering for purchase, read alouds or choice books for a class, titles on a syllabus. It can be any small set of titles that you're thinking of. We do recommend starting with a small set of titles if you've never used these before. It can be easier to just kind of get the hang of how it all works together with a little bit smaller. So I would not recommend throwing your whole collection in here to start with, though of course you can if you would like. All right, and then you're going to import those titles. You can scan books. If you've got a barcode scanner, you can ISBN scan directly into teaching books. You can use a phone camera, things like that. You can copy paste information in. We'll dive a little bit more into these options in a minute. And then you're going to immediately receive reports like this. So you'll get insights into what exactly you have in any particular collection that you can explore and learn what you have and what you don't have. All right. So now we are going to hop directly over to teaching books. So if you've never been on teaching books before, this is our teaching books for schools platform. This is where we are going to hang out today as we are starting the school year. But if you're in a public library, you might be more familiar with teaching books for libraries, which is the blue version. But that's going to have all of the same tools and resources, just kind of arranged with that different audience in mind. Everything that I'm going to be showing you how to do today is going to be exactly the same on both platforms. So don't worry about that. You'll be able to follow along, no problem. Okay, so you do need to get logged in to access what we're going to be doing today. You'll see here it says Welcome Ohio Collection Analysis Initiative up at the top, but that's kind of just a big generic anonymous access account. And what I want is my educator login. So you go to that 3-line toggle menu and click educator login. And then if you have not signed into teaching books before, at this point, it'll take you to a brief form that you can fill out to get your password set up, do email confirmation, all of that. But I'm just going to log in. And here we are on the Ohio Collection Analysis Initiative page. So that's one of the benefits of registering for the initiative is it's going to give you access to all of this in one place. So instead of our regular teaching books homepage, you're going to land on this page that gives you everything you need in one place. Now, if you have attended any of our webinars before, you might notice that this looks a little bit different. So I'm very excited to share all of this with you today. We've gone through a pretty thorough revamp of some of the support materials on this page. So you'll see some of our language here is a little bit different, but most importantly, we have a brand new handbook that walks through this process, super simplified, step-by-step, all of the things that you need to know to get your titles into teaching books and analyze those collections, and then what you can do with that. So if all of this feels like a little too much as I'm talking about it today, know that you can always come back to this and just go through the whole process step by step, slide by slide here. You can always have that open in one window and be analyzing collections in the other. We've got our new quick start guide as well, which is just kind of a simplified version of all of this information, and some contact information. So again, if you're looking for that email address or phone number, you want to get a hold of me with a question, please do reach out. But we're just going to dive right in and start creating a list. So our focus today is on the new school year, right? Fresh start, new pencils. You're all ready to look at things with excited, new, fresh eyes. So we're going to be talking about how you can examine the titles that you're sharing in your school community. With that beginning of the school year, hopefully still full of energy and ready to go. We're going to talk about some different ways that that might be useful for collaboration in your school district. And then we're going to dive into finding titles to help make existing collections what you want them to be. We're going to talk about some ways to evaluate those titles. And then what you can do with the list of possible additions. So lists that might be useful to consider. We've talked about a display, a list of titles you're considering for purchase, a recommended list. But one of the things that I really wanted to talk about today was you can also use this as a tool to make connections with classroom teachers that you're working with. So if you're a school librarian or even a public librarian, maybe this is a great something you can offer and say, let's look at your classroom collection, the titles you're making available, and then offer both resources to go along with the titles that they have and opportunities to fill gaps that they might have. So that's going to be our example collection that we start with. This is going to be a classroom collection.
I could jump in while you're doing this. I have a user who had to provide additional information for every book they were going to be book talking when the school visited the public library. So this is a handy resource for that. And, as educators may need to provide additional information to parents, or administrators or whatever, this is building this list, and the resources to come along with it is really helpful.
Absolutely. And this is an area, the kind of choice books in a classroom collection, you might not have a list. Maybe you do have an existing list of those, but there's not a library catalog. There's not some documentation of this already. So this can be a great way to put that together with some, added bonus fun parts as well. All right, so we saved our collection name, and now we can begin adding titles. There are a bunch of ways to do this. I'm going to demo a few of them here. One of them, if you're not dealing with a ton of titles, is you can simply search a title or author. So we could say we want holes, and if it was not popping up as the very first option, we could also add the author's name to make sure that it does. And then we're going to click our little add to reading list icon there. Here we go. We save as soon as we add anything, of course. And now we have a title on our list. Would not be very fun to analyze if we left it there, so we'll add some more. As I mentioned, you can add titles by ISBN. Our ISBN matching has gotten better and better all the time. It is much better than it was a few years ago, so that's a nice thing to know. Nice way to use this. You can, if you're using a computer that is attached to a barcode scanner, you can just click into this box like you're going to type a title and then scan the barcode straight into there. It will look something like this. There we go. We can add into the wild to our list and save. You can also scan, if you don't have a barcode scanner, you can use a camera. So you click on this little ISBN search icon here. It's gonna ask for permission usually, allow it to use your camera. It is not gonna work because I'm using my webcam at the moment, but it would work with a computer webcam, tablet camera, phone camera, whatever you have. That's a nice way to do that as well. But if you don't want to add titles one by one, we do have some bulk options. So you could paste a list of titles and authors in here. And each of these bulk add options is going to have some information at the top of the pop-up about how exactly things need to be formatted so you get the best results. So there's some tips and tricks there. Same thing for list of ISBNs. And then you can also upload a CSV file. Once again, there's some information here about how that should be formatted. But if you are having any issues at all with any of these methods, but particularly the CSV files, please do reach out. I'm happy to walk through the whole process if need be. I'm always happy to talk about spreadsheets and what you can do with them and how to make them nice and clean and useful. So that is an option. Just email me if you want to talk about CSV files. But for today, we are just going to use a list of ISBNs, and we'll grab those, just copy and paste those in here. We'll make sure that they're all on their own line, no gaps, and import. There we go. Now we have 27 new titles on here. We're going to save again. And at any point, of course, you can always take a title off. If you remove a title or just don't want it on the list anymore, you've got your little remove X's on the left-hand side. You can add a note. So we could make a note about, we've got 2 copies of Fever 1793 in this particular collection. And then that note is going to appear here, but it's also going to appear when we go to view the list. So we can see, we scroll down here and we've got our little note on that particular title. You can add notes from here as well. And those notes will carry over if you share the list with anybody. So that can be a great way to share information as well. If you're creating this list for a teacher that you're working with, you can put some notes in there. If they're creating a list to share with families, they can put more information in there. Lots of good options. All right, so we'll dive a little bit more into resources and other things we have going on this page in a little bit, but we're here to look at list analysis reports. So we are going to start with that. You'll see here we've got our little triangle icon that goes to the list analysis report. And this is going to be available on any list on teaching books. So not just the ones that you create. We could pull up a list of all of the Newbery winners, and we would be able to analyze that. We could pull up a list of, recommended back to school titles from School Library Journal, and we would be able to analyze that. But for what we're going to do today, I actually recommend going over here and hitting Save List Analysis Report. And then we will create a new report. Save that, and here we are. Here's all of our information. We've got 10 genres, 7 cultural experiences. We know the balance of fiction and nonfiction here, diverse books, no graphic novels, how many award winners. Our publication year median is 2010. And we even have things like page count and word count average. So you can really dive in there and see what you've got. But the thing that I always like to stop and say at this point is that none of this information is intended to be a recommendation for you in any way, right? This is not prescriptive. This is not me saying, well, no graphic novels. Can't have a list without graphic novels. This is just information. You're the one who knows what you're hoping to do with the lists that you're creating, what exactly you're looking for. And this is just a tool to make sure that what you have is lining up with what you're hoping to have, or just to make sure that there's not anything that really sticks out and surprises you. So we can dive in here and look at everything in our nice charts and graphs. We've got fiction versus nonfiction, our Lexile grade level details, recency, year published. So something that I would note here, if this were my collection, is that I don't have anything more recent than 2020. So I might want to think about adding some titles from the last 5 years. would bring up my median publication. 2010 was a while ago now. So that's, the kind of things you might want to consider as you go through. Something fun to note is that you can always go in and see, okay, what is this book from 1952? We click, there we go, Charlotte's Web. But you can click into any of these charts and see which titles we're talking about. Got our cultural experiences, got a few here. And then there's going to be a link here to our classification definitions. So teaching books does classify cultural experience in particular a little bit differently than information you might see in like a publisher set of information about cultural experiences. So if you're interested, if you have questions, if you're seeing something surprising in the titles that you're adding, I recommend taking a look at those classification definitions, but of course you can always reach out to me with questions as well. All right, genre details, got a pretty nice mix there for how many titles we have, a lot of adventure. It's always fun. Humor, it's good. And then our curricular areas. So again, of course, we've got a lot of English language arts because most of these fall into that category, but we've also got a few other things represented here. And then we have what's not included. So if you are looking at this and thinking, I really want to make sure that a particular cultural experience or a particular genre is represented in this particular set of titles. So one of my goals for this classroom collection is, I've got a whole bunch of Asian American kids who are really interested in reading sports books. Whatever it is, I might see those things and say, oh, that's going to be a problem. That's going to be something that I really want to see here. Or simply, that's something that I want to see reflected, whether or not those kids are actually in this particular classroom. You want to have a little bit of diversity of genre, cultural experience, whichever. But of course, this is, again, not a checklist. We don't need to go through and say, oh no, we don't have one of each kind of concept book in this middle school classroom library. That's just not going to be a priority. Okay. So before we dive into what you do next, I do want to point out a couple of things on this page. You can download all of this information as a spreadsheet if that is useful for you to have. You can print this report or save it as a PDF from here. You can share it digitally. So we've got our share tool here. You can grab this sharing link or you can email it directly. So if you are sharing this with maybe a teacher that you're working with, if you are sharing this with a colleague just as documentation of something that you did, there are a whole bunch of options for sharing that way. But if we did identify some places where we want to add titles, there are a few different ways that we can do this. I am going to scroll a whole lot very fast. Apologies. So if you go past not included here, you'll see we have adding and weeding titles tool. It doesn't really weed titles. That's a problem for another day. But it is a wonderful search tool for finding new titles to add. You can always click on these cultural experience and genre collections directly. But if you know you have more than one filter that you want to apply to start with, this can be a great option. So we could say that we want Asian American and we want sports and happy with any curricular area, but we're looking for titles for, we'll say, we'll go 7 to 8 here. And then we can search and we've got 59 results that match those criteria, but are not already included in that list. So that was only about 30 titles. So it's not like you're gonna, have a really hard time keeping track of what titles you already added. But if you're working with a collection that's much larger, it can be really useful to know that those have already been filtered out for you. You're not doing work you don't need to. All right, so this is still a lot of titles. You might not, want to wade through all 59 of them, but we can filter down even more with our filters on the left here. We could pick another genre, another cultural experience. We could say we only want books that have recently won an award or pick a particular award. But we know that we don't really have anything from the past 5 years. So we could say we just want titles from the past 3 years and see what we get. We could take a look at different resources that we might want to have and add those. But this got us down pretty far, so we'll just add a few from here. We can sort them if you want to know, number of resources available or year they were published. You can switch that around. And we're going to add a few of these to a list. So we could add them to our reading list here. We can add them directly to that list we were already working with, or we can add them to a new list. So we'll go titles to add classroom, and we'll add that one to our list. We can go through and do them one by one here. There we go. Or we can add multiple titles and pick a few here. We'll just grab a couple and then add those to our list. And there we go. And we could just keep doing this. We can go back in and pick another set here. We can go up and pick one of these options, or we can go to our browse page and see all collections. And this is going to be all of those filters laid out kind of linked. So opportunities to see all of the different ways that titles might be classified. We could start with a grade level instead, and then filter from there. Say we want grade 7 to 8 horror, and then any cultural experience. And we want, we'll say recent award winners. See if we get anything. Get a few there. And so we could add some of these. You can just kind of keep going. Could do this forever, honestly. And it's kind of fun to dive in and see, what do we have? Are there places where there isn't anything? Are there things where there's way more than you were expecting? Are there titles that maybe you already have in your library that you just didn't think of for this particular list? You can kind of just keep exploring. But we have a few titles there. We could just keep doing that. But what we're going to do first is go to your reading lists. This is where all your lists are going to live after you've made them. We've got institution lists you can add if you would like. We've got Ohio lists. You can explore all your state ones. And then here are lists we've created. We'll go titles to add. And then we're going to do the same thing that we did before, kind of. We're going to pick this Save List Analysis Report option. But then instead of creating a new report, we're going to add this to our classroom collection report that we already created. And now we have a version 3. Should be version 2. I might have created and deleted while I was testing this before we logged on. You never know. But now we have a new report that is all of those titles that we started with plus some 10 that we added. And you can basically just go through and see, what difference did this make? We brought our publication year median up to 2015, so we pulled that up 5 years, which is pretty nice. We can see we've got a couple more genres represented. Got some books from 2024, 2022. Can look at our cultural experiences, genres, etc., and then go down and see, what's still in those categories. You can also go to your collection reports on the left-hand side here, and we could compare these two. So we could pick those and hit compare, and you'll get a nice little side-by-side of kind of what we were just looking at. What's changed here? How many genres? What are the top genres? What are the top cultural experiences? What are your fiction versus nonfiction percentages look like? We've got 2 graphic novels now. So you can just see all of this. And again, this is perhaps a good resource to be able to share with somebody if you are looking to say, this is the work that I did, or this is the work that I want to do. Here's 10 titles that I would like to purchase for this new school year that will help this collection in this particular way that you can see laid out here. All right, just kind of sped through that. We're going to look at one more list just to kind of talk through some of this again. One of the things that I often talk about with our school users is different ways that, again, you can collaborate. So, or if you're in a public library and you're working with someone in a school, what can you offer that might be useful? So we talk a lot about, you could create lists of titles that are relevant to curriculum, and then you'll share those with resources attached, things that they can use to make those books come alive or teach them in the classroom, lists to support certain topics or units that they're working on. You can make suggestions, maybe they need a list of biographies to choose from or titles on a particular theme or about a particular historical moment. There's a whole lot of options of different things that you can put together on here that might be useful. So today we're going to look at a list of nature picture books. And we'll just go in and look at this list analysis report here. Again, we've got 5 genres, 3 cultural experiences, 100% nonfiction. That is what we were aiming for, so that's nice. But again, you could just kind of go through and see, does this look, this is the page and word count average I would expect to see for a list of picture books. So, there you go. But again, we don't have as many older titles here, but we still don't have anything newer than 2019. Especially if we're thinking about science books, that might be something to address. We're not going to see the same kind of genre diversity in a list of nonfiction nature-focused picture books, but there are things that we can do to take a look at some of what's not included here. But the main thing that I wanted to demonstrate with this particular list is if you're looking for something more specific. So if you're saying, I don't just want, fiction for a particular age group that is maybe this genre or, this cultural experience or even this curricular area, you can do a lot of great stuff by searching. So we don't have, a nature curricular area. We could dive into science and see what we find there, or STEAM, but we can also just search nature. And you'll get books that have nature in the title. You would get authors and illustrators with nature in their name if we had any of those. But you'll also get lists related to nature. So we could say nature stories for kids of all ages, Hispanic heritage sounds like it might have some great stuff to add to our list. And we could see what's here. We've got other summer outdoors might be promising, poetry and nature. We've got the Skipping Stone Awards, which is for titles related to nature, ecology, all of that kind of great stuff. Series with nature in the title, and then subject tags. So we could click in here, we could see all of these, or we can just say we're interested in nature generally. We've got 5,500 titles there that are related to nature in some way, which is more than I was expecting, quite frankly. So that's always exciting to see. And then again, we come back to our old friends, the filters, and we can say we're specifically looking for, maybe this is grades 1 to 2. We want, in particular, in our genre here, we want these to be nonfiction or picture books. We could pick one or the other there, but we'll narrow to nonfiction. So now we have still quite a lot there. So again, maybe we go see what we have that's a little more current, down to 88, not bad. And again, we could go in and add some of these to a list, add that list to our other report, go through that whole process again. Or we're gonna see if I can get the book that was at the top of this when I was experimenting earlier. And I must have done something different with the filters. This is what I get for not writing down what I did. So we are going to search for a title and we're going to pretend that it popped up in that because it did last time. And we're going to go take a look at Grand Canyon. So I want to talk a little bit. So if this is a title that popped up in your search and you're saying, you know, this sounds like a great addition, but I want to know more about this book, or I want to, you know, recommend this book, but I want to be able to share resources or find resources to teach alongside it, just have fun things to share, bring this book alive. In addition to our collection analysis tools, Teaching Books has a whole lot of resources available. We have 41 total just for this title. One of those that I think is particularly useful in this instance is our book resumes. So this is just a record of some book information for this title. So it'll have a link to the description of the book, but we've got a nice little comparison here of grade bands, age ranges. So we know that a lot of our different publications might say something a little bit different. You know, sometimes those ranges don't shift much, but sometimes they do. And that can be a great thing to look at if you're deciding if a title is the right one for you. You can see subject headings here. So Library of Congress and BISAC subject headings all laid out. Full text professional reviews, my favorite part. I used to work in a library where we fought tooth and nail for up-to-date copies of School Library Journal because we only had one and everybody wanted to read it all at once. So it's nice to just have these all in one place, easy to access. You've already got them. So it'll be, I think we pull from 8 different review sources right now, and you'll be able to see which ones are starred. We've got School Library Journal, Hornbook, Kirkus, all of those things. Is that how many book awards and distinctions has it won? How many state lists has it been on and when? And then you can even preview a digital book or see an ebook and audiobook sample. So a whole lot in one place. And the great thing about these is that they are also shareable. So you can print this out, full report, 1-page summary that has a QR code that leads to the full report, or you can share it digitally with the links. And I know Erin and Katie and I were talking the other day about, you know, there's a whole lot of different ways that these could be really useful, whether that's as a tool when you're purchasing, or a variety of other ways if you want to talk about some of those.
Yeah, I was just thinking about this. I come from a public library background, so I think about it with readers advisory and like programming, but I think that could easily perhaps be translated in the school setting of knowing, you know, what units your teachers might be teaching or working through and offering, you know, these resources or these books that make the subject come alive for the kids, or making your books in your collection or in your library more discoverable if they've got like a QR code that has a video or a recording from the author or something like that. There's just a lot of really rich resources in here. I mean, and just like as a book nerd, it's really cool to just look through. So it's you can really get lost in here and all the resources, which just gets your brain turning about all the ways that you could use this and make those connections.
Absolutely.
I'll just throw out one other, oh, sorry, if I could throw out one other example from kind of the school library world, since school is starting. And a lot of times it's an exciting time for kids, especially if they're new to the building, come to their school library and see what resources are there. Some school librarians like to do sort of a book tasting where they're pulling together different books of different genres or however they want to sort them, and have kids kind of wander through and discover books that are related in some way. And teaching books would be a great way for a librarian to look at some of the collections that they have and like, okay, do I need more mystery books? Do I need more, sports books with this type of character, that kind of thing. And so it'd be a great tool to dive into some of those categories of books and see maybe where you need to beef up your collection a little bit, getting ready for those kids coming back to school and maybe doing some of those book tastings, which is always a fun way to have kids experience the library. But I was also
Absolutely.
thinking kind of the flip side, if in a school, if the school librarian is sharing this with classroom teachers, then the classroom teachers could use this as a tool like, okay, I know our school library doesn't have this, but I would like our kids to experience next semester these types of books. And so they're using teaching books as a way to generate lists to share with the school librarian. And sort of that's kind of the flip side of it. So if you are in a school and are able to find those cheerleader teachers who really get into this and really love exploring titles, they may be sharing with you just as much as you're sharing with them.
Absolutely. Or, public library school collaboration too, teachers being able to say, here is a list of our, Battle of the Books titles. Can you make sure that you have these ahead of the new school year? And also, here's resources for them, fun things like that.
So many public libraries provide teacher collections too. So I could see inputting, scanning the books that you've pulled for teacher collections, making sure that you haven't missed anything or that you've covered some of the different like reading levels or cultural experiences. So you're providing them with a rich list of or stack of books for their teacher collection.
Absolutely. All right, so a couple of resource things I want to highlight. That was a beautiful segue. Thank you both. Some things that we have on teaching books. I'm not going to get super far into this today, but if you've got questions about it, let me know. We can talk about ways to find out more. But some of the teaching books original resources that we have are amazing for things like those kind of book tasting, book promotion, or just offering more information about a title, whether that's for yourself as if you're deciding if it's a good fit, or someone you're sharing it with. We've got our Meet the Author recordings. So these are kind of a book talk, some backstory directly from the author or illustrator, or in Jason Chin's case, the author and illustrator, where he talks about, his inspiration and how he decided to write this book and how he went about that. These can all be shared as well digitally with those share links, but also we've been talking about physically, and you can print out some gorgeous little shelf talkers with those QR codes. Back to school night, families coming through the library, parents wanting to, learn a little bit more about titles that are going to be a big deal for their kids this year, whatever that looks like for you. In addition to Meet the Author recordings, we also have name pronunciations, super fun. Different authors and illustrators talking about the backstory of their name, or just saying their name so you can hear it and pronounce it correctly. One of my colleagues always loves that as a back to school suggestion, because it's a great way to talk about your own names and get kids learning each other's names and you learning your new students' names and how to pronounce those correctly. And there's just all sorts of fun things you can do with those. But we've also got book trailers to explore, fun to watch, great way to intro a new title. And then in addition to some of those things, I'm not going to go full in depth here, but we do have book guides, activities, and lessons available. So some of those highlighted in red here are going to be the Teaching Books Original. We have some brand new graphic organizers, which you can download, print, color, black and white, whatever level you're looking for. Fact and opinion, all of these great kind of things. But we also have resources from outside. So if this is something that you're looking for, teaching resources, book discussion, we've got a reader's theater script, activity guide, teacher's curriculum guide directly from the author. There's a wealth of things that can help you get ready to teach this book or share it with somebody who's hoping to teach this book, or share it in a program at the library, whatever you're hoping to do. And it's all here in one place. Our amazing content team goes out and finds all of these things, and they are all former either public or school librarians, and so they're looking at all of these resources with that frame in mind. That's what they're looking for. And you know that somebody has already kind of reviewed it a little bit more curated than Google and cheaper than teachers pay teachers. So good things all around there. Okay, so we have created some lists. Got those there. We've looked at how to analyze those. We know that we can find our collection analysis reports here, compare them if we would like. We can go back to our Ohio or Missouri. It's all the same. It'll look the same. It'll just say Missouri. And see your handbook, your quick start. A lot of the questions that you might have will be answered in here. But if they are not, please do reach out. And we're going to hop very quickly back over to my slides. This is just kind of another representation of kind of the process that we just talked about, and intended to be as an example of, this isn't just a one and done kind of thing. You're not, you don't have to just put all your books in here and be done with it forever. This can be something that you just kind of slowly integrate into different spaces, like we've been talking about today, all of these different examples of where it might be useful. Since we looked at shelf talkers, we've got a few fun pictures of these being used in the wild with actual readers, added to displays or offered as ready-to-go book talks. Don't even have to come inside before learning about these particular titles. And there we go. All right, upcoming events. This, as I said, is the first of our fall series. There are 3 more. You can join us in September. We're going to be talking about the public library side of this. In October, we're talking about holidays and heritage months. And so in particular, how you can find a great mix of titles for different celebrations. November, we will take a look at picture books in particular and talk about what Teaching Books has for early literacy. So please do register for these. If you are registered for the initiative, you'll get more reminders from me to register for these, but you can also go to the training catalogs and find more information about those now. And again, one more time, if you're in Ohio, snap a picture of that so you can contact us at any time. And then here's Missouri. Thank you so much for being here today, and I hope you are feeling ready to go into the new school year energized and ready to look at all of the books that you might have to share.